There are no shortcuts to getting highly coveted press coverage for your brand, only smart cuts like the DIY PR project. Learn how to grow your brand's credibility with PR on a budget with me by your side. This program is your all-in-one membership with expert training, customizable templates, and a supportive community to cheer you on every step of the way. Join us and start growing your business with free publicity today. Sign up now at diy-pr.com. Welcome back to Grow Your Wealth, everyone. I'm your host, Rena Goodwin, and today we're diving into the transformative world of mindset, energy, and abundance with my guest, Meagan Murtonen. Meagan's journey from wedding planning and makeup artistry to becoming a certified mindset coach and expert in Neuro-Linguistic Programming is nothing short of inspiring. She's also the host of the Highest Self Academy podcast. In this episode, Meagan shares how NLP can help us rewire. In this episode, Meagan shares how NLP can help us rewire limiting beliefs and create new behaviors that align with the life we truly want. We also explore the powerful connection between nutrition and energy, and Meagan introduces her 30-day money-making challenge designed to help you attract abundance and step into your purpose. If you're ready to break free from what's holding you back and take actionable steps toward a more aligned life, this conversation is for you. Get ready to be inspired and empowered. Here's Meagan. Meagan, welcome to the Grow Your Wealth podcast. It's so good to have you here.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
I am so excited too. Your story is really special and I can't wait to dive in. But before we begin and get into all the good nitty-gritty detail, let's take a step back. Could you tell us a little bit about your career? I know has taken many different roles in your career so far, from makeup artist to wedding planner and mindset coach. Could you tell us about your beginnings and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was, I guess, a teenager, I loved weddings. I started in doing like banquet serving for weddings, and I always wanted to be in that industry. And so I was like, it'd be so cool to be a wedding planner. And so that was like a dream I had, but I didn't really know how to become a wedding planner. So I went to school for sales and marketing. And from there, I was going to take the event program. And then I decided that wasn't what I wanted because it was like fundraising events and not weddings. So I took a break and I decided, you know what? I think I'd like to be a makeup artist. I can do that, still weddings. So I started my very first business when I was 19, doing the hair and makeup for weddings. And as I got into that, I was like, you know what? I really do still want to become a wedding planner. So I figured out how to do that, did that, and did that for 10 years. Crazy. Um, and then I stopped everything. I moved across the country with my now husband. And I started here. So I moved from Ontario to the West Coast and started my business all over again, still doing wedding planning. I was also doing florals as well. So I did planning and florals and, excuse me, and design and like the whole shebang. And so when I moved here, I had no doubts that I could be successful here. I had started my business from nothing and brought that up and did it with more than one business. Excuse me. And then when I did move here, it was fine. But then I got pregnant and I decided I didn't want to work 15-hour work days on the weekends. Like I wanted to be home with my baby. And so I decided to do flowers only at that time. And then the pandemic hit and we had no weddings. And so at that time, I was like, I am going to figure out how to come back into weddings, like full blast, and do like luxury weddings. There's lots of people here who have tons of money. I have these beliefs that, people only pay me a certain amount of money for flowers. So I'm going to work on figuring out how to like change that money mindset. And so I had heard about NLP on a podcast, and then I was like, I need to learn how to do this. So I tried to Google that, like tried to find some techniques or DIY it, and I couldn't find anything. And I didn't want to hire a coach because I had a coach in the wedding industry and it's like a different business coach. And I just found that coach specifically wasn't very helpful for me. So I was on the fence about hiring a coach because I didn't really want to spend all kinds of money again that didn't actually do what I wanted it to do. And so I was like, here's this program. If I go through the program, then I could coach myself and learn how to do this. And so I went in with completely selfish reasons of trying to like change my own mindset. I knew I had these beliefs and I knew that it was possible to change them. I just wanted to learn how. And then I went through the program and I thought, I can't keep this to myself. This work is so powerful and so potent, and it makes changes so instantly in the way that you show up. Like, I can't not share this with other people. Like, I have to become a coach because it's a disservice to just do it for my own stuff. And so here we are now as a mindset coach and working with the subconscious mind. And yeah, it's been a wild journey.
That is so, so incredible. And just to back up really quickly, for those that might not know, could you tell us about what does NLP mean? What does it stand for? What does that look like?
Yeah, so NLP is Neuro-Linguistic Programming. So it is the language of the mind and how to essentially rewire that. So our brain is made of all kinds of different little pathways. And every time we think a thought or do an action or have a behavior, it creates a neural pathway in our mind. And so we can actually change the way we have our paths moving. So we can it's neuroplasticity, right? Our brains are like putty almost. Like people say plastic plasticity, but it's more like putty. It's moldable. And so we can change the way that our pathways move, and what you would call like rewiring your mind. You're creating a new neural pathway. And so when we think the things that we'd rather think instead, we're changing our old beliefs and creating this new neural pathway. So now we're changing the way that we actually think, which changes the way that we show up, changes our behaviors, changes our actions. And so we become a new person. And it's all this automatic program that we create right inside our brain. So we're not relying on willpower or motivation.
Wow, that is so incredible. So you sought after NLP training. You yourself became trained, thought it was so, so powerful, certainly changed your life and certainly changed your business as well. Can you share with us a little bit about the transformation that this brings to people? I mean, is this a long process as well? I can see, especially like for our listeners, busy business owners, they are all about chasing that transformation, right? But they're not so much about looking inward and literally changing our minds. Most of us that are entrepreneurs too, we're go-getters. We may be even a little bit stubborn, right? As we're, shooting for the stars and so forth. How is this practice so important? And how has it really kind of affected your own clients?
Yeah, so excuse me, the transformation is really hard to explain because everything is so subtle in the changes that you do that sometimes it could be hard to realize, oh, I actually did all this work and I don't even know that I did it. Because normally when we try to do something, we set a goal, we try to do a new habit, we're consciously working towards it. Where every day we're saying, oh, I got to get up, I got to do this, I got to do that. And so we know consciously that we're working towards something. So when we see the results of that, we know the work that we did. But because we're working at the subconscious, we are like bypassing that willpower and motivation. And so the results become effortless. And then it feels like we didn't actually do any work. So sometimes we don't even realize the transformation. But I'll give you an example. I have been working on my Black Friday promotion launch, and it's a bigger goal than I've ever had in my life before. And so I was speaking to my mentor and I was saying, I know that it's possible. I have everything set up. I'm still taking action, but I feel doubt that that it's actually going to happen. Not that it can happen. I know that it's possible. Of course it is. I feel like I don't fully believe that it's going to happen for me. I feel like people aren't going to just pay me that much money and it's just going to come pouring in for me, right? I was like I want to get into that like delusional belief that I know it's going to happen without a doubt. And so she had said to me, like, you feel like it's not safe for you to believe in that. And I said, yeah, I think that's what it is. Like, I don't want to let myself be disappointed. So I'm just going to, kind of tell myself like, it's okay. You knew it wasn't going to happen. It's okay. Like just you mentally prepared yourself. And so I did a lot of work on that afterwards. Like I'm always being like, where am I stuck right now? What are my limiting beliefs about this? And like, how can I change that using these techniques? And so I've been listening to a custom hypnosis that I wrote. I listen to it every night, sometimes during the day, all about my mindset around this launch and what's possible for me. And I said to her today, I was like, I went from kind of believing that it might not happen to being like, I need to raise the price of my membership because I was like, it's not sustainable at the cost that it is right now. And she was just like, holy, but you don't even realize that wasn't something that I was like, okay, these are the numbers. This is what I need to do. It was this instant shift from what I wrote in my hypnosis about money and about my value that I offer and about all the things. And I went from not believing that I could have this launch that I wanted to saying, I need to raise the price of my membership and feeling like fully committed to that, which is a crazy way because it just happens. Like it's this weird automatic thing that just happens. And so, yes, we need to do this work. You don't really have to, we are looking inwards, but it's not like we're sitting there talking to a therapist about it, right? We're not talking about our feelings. We're not like getting vulnerable in that way. But when we work at the subconscious, we're facing the shadows and then finding the truth about that. So we're looking at it and being like, is this really true? Why do I feel this way? And what could I believe instead? So it's not so much that we're, getting like super vulnerable and opening up about our feelings or we're looking in that way, but just saying like, how can I actually benefit from releasing this? And then doing the work so that we become that next level version of ourselves. And if we don't do the work, then we get stuck in the same model of reality that we have. We all have like this glass ceiling that we put on ourselves because of the expectations of others, the things that people have said to us, the things that society says we can or cannot be, especially as women. And so when we live in this glass ceiling, we don't know that we're living under a glass ceiling. It's invisible. But we put the way that we act or the things that we believe stop us from taking action that would be above those results. And so when we start to peel back the layers, like this limiting belief and this limiting belief, and we do that, then we start to shatter that glass ceiling and we expand what we think is possible, not just for ourselves, but we expand our view of the world and the opportunities, and we start to see things for how they truly are and not how people told us they're supposed to be. And it's this magical moment that you get to where you're like, oh, this is what life can be like.
Wow, that is incredible. And, it makes me think a lot about, especially as women, you hear things about imposter syndrome, right? And so, what I hear when you're talking about these limiting beliefs is that you can speak logic to what you're doing all day, but if you don't truly believe it, it becomes a lot more difficult to take action. In some ways, we're paralyzed and can't take action, right? Because of, whatever you want to call it, limiting beliefs, self-doubt, etc. too. Just so fascinating in terms of you knew that with your new launch coming up for the holiday season that pricing is certainly going to be of issue, right? Oftentimes I like to work backwards from my goals, and that's a very logical way, right? Like I need to price it at this because I anticipate I'm going to sell this amount. This is how much marketing, PR I need to do. But for a lot of people, and myself even included, right? Once you see the numbers, the logic sets in, and you're like, oh, no one's gonna pay this. So I gotta lower the price, right? And taking time for ourselves to really do the work. And I can almost see like the channels, right, being connected in our minds. Like, of course, like it just clicks. Is that what it feels like? It just clicks and feels easy versus like we're fighting against ourselves.
Yes, exactly. It feels easy because now you've created a new belief in your mind, which again dictates your actions, right? So our model of reality is formed. So every time we take in information, that causes us to have a memory or an experience. And so those are stored in our mind, and that causes an emotion. And so the emotion is what leads to our actions and our behaviors. So if we have a negative emotion about something, we're not going to take the actions that propel us forward. We're going to choose to hide inwards, to make ourselves small, to not show up as our full selves. And then we're also reinforcing that belief. So it's cyclical, right? So every time you have these beliefs, you take the actions. So now you've reinforced that belief. So now your memory and experience is even more negative because you're like, yeah, every time I try this, it doesn't work, it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And it's a cycle. So if instead you work at the subconscious mind to change the way that you believe, it then changes the emotion. And so when now you have even a more neutral emotion, it doesn't have to go from like 100 or 0 to 100. It could just be a little bit more neutral, a little bit better than that negative experience. So now maybe you say, okay, even if I don't fully believe in it, I at least know that it's possible. So I'm going to still take these actions because I feel like neutral about this, or I feel good, but maybe a little skeptical. That's still better than you feeling like this is not going to work for me. Like, of course I'm a failure. Of course this, right? And those beliefs. So now you're going to do that. And even if you don't have the result of the goal that you set, but you still see positive progress, well, now you're reinforcing that actually you do find success. Actually, you do the things, or you can take that action and not fail. You went on an Instagram live and people watched, and maybe somebody bought from you. And so every time you reinforce these positive actions and behaviors, we're changing our beliefs as well. So it's this like cycle where we can't ignore the subconscious mind because that's where all of our memories are stored. And so even if you're thinking, okay, the root of my money issues is that my parents live paycheck to paycheck and it was really hard for us. I didn't have a lot of money, so that's how I live right now. However, those are conscious memories, but your subconscious might hold even like memories even further back, which could be generational, which is crazy because they can actually show up on brain scans. So they show that trauma is passed down from people by looking at their brains and it shows up there, which is mind blowing.
Oh my.
And then also past lives is another one. So we can carry trauma with us through all these different past lives. And we don't, of course, we wouldn't know that. Of course, we don't have memories from that or from what our grandparents went through. And we can even find our form beliefs while we're in the womb. So if our mother thinks something and has something traumatic happen to her, she can also pass that along to us. And I've had clients who have confirmed with their mother after they've discovered that their limiting belief came from 3 months in the womb, and they've been like, has something traumatic happened? And their moms have been like, yeah, how could you know that? So like it's crazy. Um, but when we work at the subconscious, we get to actually look at the root cause instead of those reinforced beliefs and behaviors. Like every time we reinforce that belief, we're going to the root cause and we're saying like, okay, we're ready to release this now for good and anything that came after it.
That's really, really interesting. I've heard that as well too about the trauma being passed down generation to generation. I think the way that I heard it called was almost like an imprint, right? Just like this gentle imprint in our, whether it's DNA, our mind, our memories. And it's so fascinating to hear that you work with clients in terms of really uncovering what those imprints might be and what in what ways that they might show up in their lives. So for someone listening and is thinking a lot about this, right? In terms of, I really want to expand my consciousness, quite frankly.
Yeah.
You mentioned hypnosis. Is this a tool in the toolbox for them? How can they start first recognizing and addressing those limiting beliefs? And then how do they take action on them? Is it through hypnosis most significantly?
So hypnosis is really good for positive reprogramming. Not, I mean, you can go back and do past life regression, or inner child regression and go back to a moment to kind of identify a belief. But the best way to do that is through a technique called neuroenergetic encoding or timeline therapy. So our subconscious mind has a timeline that's past, present, and future. So we can ask it to take us to the root cause of where we formed whatever the belief is. and then it will take us back to that event, and we'll look at it from up, up, up above. So we're not re-experiencing the trauma. So that's really important that, we're not going back into the moment and feeling it. We're observing it as like a third party person and taking the learnings from it. So we look at the event, we take the learnings that our subconscious wants us to know, like why is our subconscious holding on to this, and what can we learn about it that we can take with us into the future so that we can actually turn this into a positive, piece of information for us. And then we release it, we let it go. And again, we take those learnings with us. So that's the best way to release limiting beliefs. Another way is called collapsing anchors. So you would take the feeling that you have or the belief that you have, and at the same time, you would change it to, say, like 4 feelings or beliefs that you would rather have instead. So it just collapses that old anchor. So when you start to think about it, all you think about is the new 4 things that you wanted to have instead. So it's just like an automatic thing that happens. You're not like, oh, wait, what did I say again? And so I actually did this as one of the past techniques that I've done in this like past month. And I can't even remember what the belief was. Like I was trying to think about it even like a couple days later.
Oh my.
What was the actual belief that I was trying to release? And I couldn't remember what it was because it's that powerful and it just collapses.
Oh my goodness. That is so, oh my God, that's so cool. So how does this also show up? Obviously, we're talking a lot about like the mental health aspect of it, but you're also a holistic nutrition coach too, right? How do the two marry together? And yeah, just tell us a little bit about that, because I know also as busy entrepreneurs, sometimes myself included, I am very health conscious, but maybe there's something in that subconscious that would be worth tapping into as well.
Yeah, definitely. So I don't coach on holistic nutrition, but I am certified in it. So
Okay.
I take it more as like knowledge and being able to help guide people without like coaching them in it.
Mm.
But the food that we eat in our body, right? If we're eating a bunch of processed foods, we're blocking the energy where it's causing stagnation. And so the modality that I find I resonate with the most is traditional Chinese medicine. And so there's your qi, and that's basically like your life force. It's your blood flow. It's making sure that your energy is always flowing. So anything that, if you have like pain or something and they're like that's some sort of stagnation where the energy is not flowing. And so when we're thinking about like manifesting or being able to do this work for our goals, it's all about energy. And so if we're causing stagnation in our bodies because we're not eating food that is easily digestible, that's providing the right nutrients and physical energy for our bodies, then it's going to be really hard to get to where we want to go outside of our bodies as well. If we're all energy, but we're just like this one big block of stagnation because we're not properly taking care of ourselves, then we're not going to easily move through the energy that's on the outside of us as well. And so if you're looking also at nutrition from a subconscious standpoint, there are so many blocks that keep us from living as our healthiest selves, right? Like we'll tell any excuse that you give to yourself. Like let's just say you're somebody who on and off works out, but you'd like to consistently do some sort of workout every day, even if it's gentle. And so you think it's like in that model of reality. Oh, I tried before, but every time I try, I just get so burnt out, or I just don't have the time, or I'm too sore, so I'll just do it tomorrow. Those are all like limiting beliefs and excuses that we give to ourselves to not continue to show up. So when you can discover what your actual belief about it is, then you can go and release that and also just reprogram so that you see yourself doing those things automatically as well. So there are techniques for that. Like swish pattern technique is a really good one. So what you would do is you would look at the old way of being. So what do you want to change? Well, every time I go to work out, I end up scrolling my phone, and instead of like leaving for the gym, I sit there and then I'm like, oh, I guess I don't have time to go now. And so if that's the behavior you want to change, you would think, well, what do I want to do instead? Okay, well, maybe I don't even bring my phone to the gym. Maybe I like get dressed, I put my phone down somewhere, I don't look at it, and then I go to the gym without my phone. Maybe you have some other sort of music device when you go to the gym. And so You don't even look at it. You leave it at home, you get out there. So you're going to take the old way and you're going to bring it like up on the screen. And then you're going to take this new way of being, and we're going to do what we use submodalities is what we call them. So submodalities are how we store information in our brain. So it's things like, is it black and white or is it in color? Is it big or is it small? And once you figure those out, you're going to make that feel like really real. So what feels better to you? Like if it's really big, does that make you want it more? Does that make it feel more real? So that you've made this new way of being so real to your body. It feels so good to have it, like you want it. And then you take the old way and you swish it into the corner while this new picture is coming up and exploding big and bright on the screen. And you do that a bunch of times. And eventually you can't even really call up that picture. It just seems like a fuzzy gray mess, sort of, where you're like, nope, I can't even see it when I think about it. And so now in your mind, you've taken that old pathway out and you've rewired it and re-navigated the pathway so that instead of doing that old behavior, now you just do this new thing.
That's really interesting. What stood out to me too, Meagan, about what you just said, right? Like sometimes it takes, weeks, months, sometimes generations, right, to really imprint into our minds and to affect the way that we think, affect the way that we behave as well. This is not an overnight one and done type of process. It sounds like if we're literally changing our minds to change our behaviors, especially for some, change their businesses too. It sounds like this is more of a process, right?
Yeah. So it's interesting because each technique takes like 10 minutes max, right?
Mhm.
Hypnosis maybe a little bit longer, but you can listen to it as you go to sleep. And so each of these new ways of being doesn't take long, and the way that you show up differently is instant. So you will instantly change that behavior, but it's one behavior, it's one habit. And when we're trying to move into this like best version of ourselves, this highest version of ourselves, well, that of course is a huge puzzle. So it's like one piece of the puzzle that we're changing and reprogramming. And so I always say this work isn't to like change overnight. It's to be an awareness so that when you are triggered, when that emotion comes up, when we think about that model of reality, when that emotion comes up, it's like, okay, the old way of me would have done this. And now the new way of me is doing this. So that's one way to be an awareness because you can see that there was an old way and there's a new way. There's another thing is like, well, why am I feeling triggered, right? So to be an awareness of that, what specifically made me feel this emotion so that I can dig deeper into it and find out what I might be believing about myself, the world, the people around me, that's actually keeping me from taking the action I need to take. So again, if you were to look at that example of Black Friday, if I had said, oh, I don't feel like it's possible, so I'm not actually going to like, why even bother writing these emails, right? That would, of course, not be the thing that's going to propel me into the future. So being an awareness where I can say, okay, I am feeling like, yes, I know it's possible, but maybe I haven't seen the proof of it yet. So I'm feeling stuck there. To be in that awareness is to be like, yes, I have that belief and I'm going to take action and I'm going to do the things. And then we'll see what happens and we'll see where we go. And so every time, like maybe next time, maybe next Black Friday, I'm like, I fully believe this can happen because I've done it before, right? So again, it's creating those little actions that, yes, takes time overall to like make this big change. But every time you do these techniques and these tools, you're quantum leaping into another version of yourself because now you are the person who shows up and works out every day, who naturally chooses to eat all the healthy food, who is taking action even when you don't believe in it. And that is so much different than the old version of you. So that's what we call quantum leaping, when you literally go from this one way of being into a completely different version of yourself. And because when you're showing up with those different habits, your actions are different as well. And so, of course, your results are different.
I want all of that, by the way. So we might have to talk. But
Yeah.
it reminds me too, what I talk about with my team and with my clients a lot is this, this notion of working smarter, not harder. And what I keep kind of picking up, maybe even in my own brain, is that this feels like a way of not fighting with yourself all the time, right? Because you're working in lock sync with the person that you want to be. And so I think that that is just so, so powerful. And for a lot of us, right, we're juggling, we're balancing life and work. For many of us, life and work are kind of the same thing. Whatever that sort of looks like, right? I think it's so fascinating to how you've been able to leverage this skill, technique, modality that you have to also do something really important, which is not just make our lives better, but to make our businesses better. And you've got this really interesting course called Attract Money in 30 Days, which sounds very, very interesting. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this is, I've positioned it as a challenge for yourself. So there are a whole bunch of different money beliefs that we hold. So things like, it's hard to make money. Every time I have money, it disappears. Money is shameful to want money. Like it's bad and evil, right? So I feel shame. And there's a whole bunch. I think there's like 7 or 8 that we had in that program to release because each of those is something that blocks us from showing up and making money, selling, even just the ability for money to come in effortlessly. There are times when money comes to you and you're not expecting it at all, right? Like you'll get a check in the mail, maybe somebody will gift you something. And so that's possible. So the fact, if we think, oh, money doesn't come easily to me or it's not possible, then it's not going to. So when we can release all those beliefs, then again, like I said, we expand our mind on what's possible. And then the challenge part of it is to listen to a visualization and or hypnosis. There's an anchor so that you can tap on it. So we talked about collapsing anchors, but you can create a stacked anchor as well. So you would take like 4 feelings that you really want to have. These are like states. Maybe it's like confident, wealthy, abundant. Um, I don't know, another one, valuable. And so that's how you want to feel. And so you can stack those onto, say, like a knuckle, and then you have it forever. So you could just tap on that knuckle or tap on it or hold it, and those feelings will wash over you at any time. So that is in there as well. And it's just to commit to yourself for 30 days to do this reprogramming work. Now that we've released everything, we're going to reprogram the way that we think about money, the way that we think about ourselves to create that anchor that we can tap on to visualize what it would look like to make the amount of money that you really want to make. In the visualization, it's an amount that is more than you've ever had, but it also feels realistic. Like there's a way for you to get it. So obviously, if you're at like $1,000 a month and you want to make $1 million a month, I mean, of course that's possible, but it's probably not very realistic. You'd be like, how am I going to do that? And so something, maybe you start at like 10,000. If you're making $1,000 a month, maybe $10,000 a month is your thing that feels kind of crazy, but also a little bit safe because we want it to feel possible. We want it to be a little bit delusional, but like possible. And so it takes you through what would your life look like if you had that amount of money? How would you show up every day? And so every day that you do that, you're reinforcing that it's possible that if you had that, you would know exactly what you would do once you had that money, how you would show up, how you would act, how you would behave. And then you start to do those things in real life because now you see it in your mind every morning. And then with the hypnosis, again, that's like at your subconscious level. So visualization is, while it works with the subconscious, it's very conscious level because you're like listening to it. And with hypnosis, you're going into like a deep state of trance. So while you can still hear it, and yes, you are conscious, like you're still aware of things going on around you, you're speaking right at the subconscious level. So the beliefs just get imprinted.
That's incredible. It's like rewriting that money story. We oftentimes hear about ourselves or about each other, right? Like, I'm holding myself back. You're holding yourself back. You got to shift your mindset, but not necessarily having the tools to be able to do that, and being able to do the work. But people like you, Meagan, out there that are working side by side with folks, right? So that they can not just achieve their goals for the short term,
but really for the long term as well too. I know this is going to be top of mind at the beginning of the new year, especially, which is when this episode will be airing. I just have a couple questions left for you, but for people right now that are looking at the next 12 months ahead and beyond, right? They might be feeling stuck in their career or a lifestyle that they've outgrown. I mean, what advice would you give them on taking that first step toward a more aligned, purpose-driven life?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is to get really clear about what they actually want. Like, if everything that they wanted was a yes and the universe gave it to them, what would that look like? Because once we can identify what it is that we do want, and by the way, we're not thinking about what we don't want because our subconscious doesn't process knots. So if you're thinking like, I want to get out of debt, even like debt's a knot, it's a negative, right? So we're not thinking debt because your subconscious will go, okay, debt, you want more debt. And we don't want more debt. We want more money. So we want to think like, okay, I want $25,000 to get me out of the debt, but we're not thinking about the debt part of it. We're just saying like, I want $25,000. I want $25,000, right? So when we're thinking about what we want for 2025, think about all those things in the what do I want, not what do I don't want, and getting really clear about it, like getting really detailed about how it would make you feel, how you would show up, what it would do for other people too. Because when we're connecting it to a bigger purpose, it feels bigger than us, right? And that's a good thing. So getting that really clear and then just taking action, any action. Like it doesn't matter if it's the littlest baby step, any step forward is toward your goal. And so that's one of the SMART goals in NLP. We know the traditional SMART goals, most of us in this world, but instead of timed, it's toward. So there's no time limit on when you have this goal. It's that every action step you take is toward your goal. Because when we put time limits on something and then it doesn't happen in that amount of time, and who are we to say what time something should or should not happen? The universe is going to give us everything that we want, but we have to pass certain lessons and tests and be ready to be that level before we'll get what we want, right? It's all about becoming that version of ourselves. And sometimes we can do that really quickly. And sometimes there's like a longer journey and more tests and challenges that we have to face. And so instead of saying, oh, I want to have this in 30 days, we just say, I'm going to take the goals or take the action steps that are going to help me get to that outcome. So toward, always toward. Little baby action steps, like stop staying still, stop saying tomorrow, just anything. Keep moving forward.
Oh my goodness. Amen. It reminds me of that saying in terms of, you've got to take action and then the motivation will kind of come next, right? Like just an object that's in motion will stay in motion, but you got to get in motion. This has been so powerful, Meagan. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so on Instagram, I am Meagan Murtonen, so Meagan Murtonen. And on TikTok, I'm Meagan.Murtonen. Or the Highest Self Academy is my membership program, so it's accessible. And you get one-on-one coaching, a self-paced program. You have access to all these techniques in a resource library, so many cool things that we do to actually take you through working at the subconscious level. So that's the Highest Self Academy at meaganmurtonen.com. And that's mostly it, I think.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. This was such a pleasure. And you're changing lives. And I hope that this episode helps reach the right people and change their lives too.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope this episode deposited some useful advice and insights to help you grow your wealth. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future conversations. You can find more resources, episode details, and updates at growyourwealthpodcast.com. And let's keep the conversation going on Instagram. Follow me at Grow Your Wealth Podcast. I'd love to hear your thoughts, questions, or takeaway from today's show. Until next time, remember, burnout is optional. Take care, and I'll see you next week.